Welcome to the Path to Purpose interview show, where we share our unique and universal stories about finding and fulfilling our purpose. My name is Katja and I'm a mentor for lightworkers. And today I'm here with Stacy Dyson. And Stacy is a poet, a cappella vocalist, playwright who specializes in the life and times of Black women, and she's a featured performance at the venues all over San Diego, as well as TEDx speaker. So as you can hear, there is a lot of creativity in very many various forms. So let's get started and dive right into Stacy's journey. So welcome, Stacy.
Hi, how are you?
It's such a lovely to have you here sharing your journey with us. So I just briefly explained what you do. So could you please tell us more about who you are and what you do? Because I know you have much, much more than what I just shared.
Well, there's been quite a bit. I'm a performance poet as opposed to a poet, that just reads their material. I sort of internalize mine and dramatize it on stage. This is all my original work. I haven't done a cover for 40 years, at least.
Wow.
I'm also an a cappella vocalist, and that covers everything from, as my bio says, from Bonnie Raitt to Aretha Franklin. Because I don't believe in singing just one sort of music. I sing what hits my heart first.
Mm.
I'm a playwright as well. I'm getting ready to, sometime next year, finish a play that I've been working on for a little while called August 5000. And this will be my fourth play.
Wow.
The last one that I wrote, and this was some years ago, was a Colorado Women's Playwriting Festival winner. So I'm hoping to pull that same magic somehow. I'm also a performance coach and a writing coach. I try and teach people how to do what it is that I do, because this is a very specialized art form. It's not just standing up on a stage and throwing the words out. There's a way to do it. So I teach that when I can. I do workshops, and sometimes I'll perform and then do a workshop after. It depends on the venue and what they want. And then the last one, the official one, I'm a literary arts program designer. So a school will say, I walk into a school, or a school will call me and say, we want our kids to do a poetry unit or a writing unit. I'll go ahead and design a program so that the kids write a series of poems, then learn how to perform them, and ultimately there'll be a show and a little book will come out of it. But aside from that, I don't do a whole lot.
Yeah, that's I was like, okay, you share more because I know you are doing so many
there's a
beautiful
little
things. And let's talk about like, how did you know? When did you know that this is what you want
oh,
to do?
that's a big question. I don't know how to not do this, really. I've been singing since I was 3, maybe a little bit earlier, I don't know, but the first memory of it I have is singing a Beatles song, Hard Day's Night, when I was 3 years old.
Oh, that must have
I've
been
been writing poetry since I was 5. And, as soon as I thought everybody did that. I grew up surrounded by books and music. And so I thought everybody did what I did. It wasn't a big deal. I grew up writing and singing. And so, after I got a little bit older and figured out, oh, not everybody does do this,
absolutely.
I decided for a very long time that I was going to be a doctor. Okay. Well, at first, I was going to be a cowgirl ballerina and a poet. So, because one has those dreams. And then, when I got a little bit older, I decided I wanted to be a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through all of my entire school career, all the way up until, um, until the end of high school, um, taking the courses that you take to prep for medical school. But I was writing poetry the whole time. I
Mm.
was writing stories and everything because this is like breathing for me. I don't know how to not do it.
Yeah.
So I'm writing this whole time, but I'm thinking medical school. And I get into my theoretical chemistry class. That was my downfall. Um, because the instructor quite literally told me, even if God comes down from the heavens with a golden slide rule, you will not be able to pass this class. I mean, I was that bad at it. And so I thought, okay, what can I do? You know, what am I suited for? What interests me?
Mm.
And at that point, I had started getting more and more into my history, more and more who I was as a Black person. And so I decided I was going to become a journalist, a print journalist, because I thought, video journalists were like showbiz people, not real journalists. I wanted to be a real journalist. So I studied print. When I went to university, I studied print journalism, but I was still writing.
Mm-hmm.
It just never occurred to me not. This quite literally is breathing for
Yes.
me. And so I was breathing normally, and I was taking journalism classes. So I got this inspiration for a play, and I'm sitting there one night, because I always write in longhand first, and then I transcribe later. And this is when we still use like typewriters, not word processors, actual typewriters.
Yes.
And I'm sitting there and I'm scribbling madly away. And this is going to sound really odd and mystic and everything else, whatever it is you want to call it. But I literally heard a voice saying, "This is what you're supposed to be doing."
Oh.
Yeah, it was kind of like, oh, okay. So I started writing poetry full time, which did not make my mother happy. My mother wanted a doctor.
But
But
I.
my father got it. My father was a singer, had sung all of his life, and so he understood what
Mm.
was going on. So I started writing, but I started out with the idea that I was only going to be um, a poet on paper. The performance angle never even crossed my mind. So I'm writing madly along, and I had a fairly decent collection. I was getting ready to send it to a publisher, and my university had a talent show. So I took along my newest poem, which I was extremely proud of, and I performed it, and I got a standing ovation.
Wow.
And that was it. It was like, okay,
This is what
there's going to
I'm
be
here
a finish.
for.
So I spent a lot of time just going to different places, and I started off when I did a show, it would be half other poets' work, other Black poets' work, and then half mine. And then I just started doing mine.
Mm.
So, years went by, and I learned that there were schools interested because I wanted an audience that would grow up with me. So
Mm.
I did a lot of schools, or as many schools as I could, and I would do entire classes teaching very basic poetry, how to get, I started off with haiku. I hate haiku, but it's easy for kids to understand because, um, and then I started working with adults.
Mm.
You know, I said it takes a while. I've been doing this for a while, but basically, after I stopped doing schools, or while I was still doing schools, I started working in Colorado with a group called Imagination Celebration. And I would do performances for them, workshops. I was a touring artist for them for a long time. And then they made me their poet laureate. So a lot of workshops with adults. And then because my entire life I had been really interested in women's voices specifically. So I started doing workshops and looking for apprentices, specifically women,
Mm.
because our voices don't get heard.
Yes.
You and I both know there are women who want to speak, but are afraid to or can't for some reason. And there was always in my head, somebody has to sing for my sisters. Well, it couldn't just be me. There are how many of us in the world? So I had to train other women to find their voices. So I started a group in Colorado Springs called Dragon's Wing. That was all women. The cool thing about Dragon's Wing was every poet that came in had to have another talent. You couldn't just be a poet. So I had poets who were dancers, poets who were singers, poets who were teaching administrators, because that's a talent in itself, one that I, thank God, do not have. So all of these different women doing all of these different things in all of these different voices. Because I sat down one day, Katja, and I said, I have to give back. Too many people gave to me. Too many people helped me. So I'm going to take 5 years of my life and very consciously, give back.
Wow.
So Dragon's Wing was part of that. I had, gosh, how many apprentices did I have? I think I had 4 apprentices, and my apprenticeships run for 3 years. So I was a little bit busy. That 5 years turned into 7, and I had to stop because I was losing my solo career helping everybody else. And so I declared to all of my friends, I'm never doing this again. It was a one-shot deal. I'm just going to work on my solo career. I started doing that, and a lot of nonsense happened in Colorado Springs. I just didn't want to live there anymore. So I came to San Diego, and I started gathering apprentices again. And within about a year, I had another women's group going. And so, of course, my friends were laughing hysterically, saying, yeah, right, never again, da, da, da. And that group was called Page to Stage. I did that with another woman named Tanya Raz, and that one ran for, gosh, about 4.5 years, maybe a little bit longer. And then I got sick, and I had to stop. So again, I recovered more or less, started doing workshops again, performances again, the usual thing. And I woke up one morning and I couldn't see very well. And I thought, okay, too much time on the computer, maybe I'll just pull back. But my vision started getting blurrier and blurrier to the point finally where I really couldn't see. And I went to the doctor, and it wasn't cataracts. It wasn't anything that they could pin down. It took them 2 years to figure out what it was. But in the meantime, I, for all intents and purposes, was just out of the game. I could only see to type very necessary things. I couldn't read for pleasure anymore. Reading my own handwriting, I couldn't even do that.
Wow.
So finally, they pinned it down to, they pinned down what it was. They did cataract surgery. I see beautifully now, but I had lost 2 years. So it's like, okay, back up on the horse. And so this third workshop that I'm getting ready to do is called Fire Scribe. And again, all of my friends are laughing hysterically because I said I would never do this again. But it's too important, especially now.
Yeah.
It's too important for women to know how to use their voices and how to get their stories out there, because that is what's going to save us. People telling their stories.
Exactly. And I just love how, like, even though you might have your resistance to do these workshops, but you kind of still do them because there is a
Well, the workshops I love doing because that's not about me.
Yeah.
That's helping other people find their voices. And if you've taught it all in any way, if you've led somebody to where it is they need to be in any way, the minute that light hits their eyes and they go, oh, that's it. That's all you need. Which is not to say that I do the workshops for free, but that just what as much as I hate the cliche, that aha moment, that's the best thing in the world. And so I've been lucky enough to set fire to quite a few careers, and I'm really happy about that.
So let's talk about the fire, because it's also like one thing is how to keep the fire burning, because you have a long career in like doing all the creative arts, and part of that, like often I hear from creative people that they need to deal with rejection, like people saying no and no again. So how have you kept the fire burning during all these years, like just kept going? Have you dealt with rejection on your career?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And quite honestly, the way I've kept the fire burning is basically I'm just stubborn as hell. Um, any rational, sane, thinking person would have given up on this ages ago, because this is not a secure way to live. It's not financially secure. Sometimes you work, sometimes you don't. Um, there's no security about it whatsoever. I because it's so emotional, it's such an emotional sort of a job. When you get crushed, it's really, really just devastating. On the other hand, when you get elevated, it's fantastic. So a lot of it has to do with, really, I am very, very stubborn. But the other thing is that you know when you're born to do something. And I have a poem that says, God put his hand on me and said, here am I, now speak. So I've always very much had this sense of you are supposed to be doing this. So that's one. The other thing is that I was raised to believe that with right comes responsibility. I don't get to have this gift and not share it. That's not how it works. I know because of my upbringing and because of my natural inclination that I have to help other women do this, and that I have to set other voices, as we say, on fire doing this. Um, and a lot of it is just love. I love what I do, and I'm happy most of the time. When the rejections come, which, thank you, Lord, do not come as often as they did when I was younger, um, it's still, I at this age, quite honestly, I mean, I'll be 60 in 6 months. And at this age, I sort of take it in stride. It's like, okay, they don't have the good sense to know what's going on here. They don't have the good sense to know what they're being offered. Don't worry about it. Keep moving. So that spirit, that idea, that push to keep moving kind of overrides. I'm not going to say it overrides the pain. It just makes it bearable. I've had people tell me to my face, this isn't a job. You're just playing around, and how nice that you get paid for playing around. Um, those people, once I get over going, um, I try not to pay too much attention to those folks. It still stings a little bit. It's not as bad as it was, like I said, when I was, because my mother was one of those people. She really didn't want me doing this.
She was
And
the
she and
doctor.
yeah, because it wasn't safe and it wasn't secure. Um, on the other hand, my father was my biggest fan. He got it. And so I had that balance going on. But my mother and I fought about this constantly. I've met people who tell me, you shouldn't be doing this. You should be working for something worthwhile. What would you call more worthwhile than trying to get people to tell their own stories and lift their voices? I intellectually, I understand what they're saying. Emotionally, I don't.
Mm.
Um, the really, I mean, there have been a couple of really crushing rejections. Those stopped me for a moment, and I got a little uncertain for a moment about, am I really supposed to be doing this? Am I making any sort of an effect? Should I just, I had an instance a few years back. I never thought I'd hear myself say, I'm through, I'm giving up, I'm not doing this anymore. And I got to that point. I was just at the end of my rope, and I didn't know what to do. I wasn't sure what I was going to be doing next, but I knew it wasn't going to be this. No more poetry, no more work, nothing. I wasn't going to. I couldn't take it anymore. And I had a student that I had forgotten about. I taught this woman years and years ago, out of the blue, write to me and say, I'm still quoting to my students what you quoted to me.
Wow.
Yeah. And I get those starburst reinforcements all the time. And so these days, when I'm feeling like, okay, I need to do something else, this is ridiculous, I just have, if I've learned, just wait for a minute, just wait for a little while. Something will happen. An old student will get a hold of me. Somebody will book me for a show. Somebody will, that I see on the bus will say, oh, I saw you in a performance. Just something comes out of somewhere. Okay. I had a friend who told me once, after her child passed away, that when they were younger, they used to play a game. If you die before me, just send me a white feather. Okay. I get white feathers all the time when I'm, figuratively speaking, when I'm feeling like I don't want to do this anymore, I can't do this anymore. The 2 years that I couldn't see, that was incredibly difficult. And I had to find ways around it. I was only able to perform, I think in those 2 years I did maybe 6 performances. And that was really, really hard for me. And the lighting had to be just so, and I had to have my magnifying glass with me, and I had to have the type on the paper set to like 28. Um, and creating something new was completely out of the question. I couldn't see to write. That just about knocked me down. But then I was surrounded by a lot of people who kept saying, first of all, let me help you. So my friends, my students, almost everyone was marvelously supportive. And then on the few times I did perform, I would get, how can I learn how to do what you do? Or when can I see you, perform again? And so there were always, God was telling me, I'm not through with you yet. Just hang in there for a minute.
Yeah, and there is more. And I love how you shared the struggles of this journey as well, because sometimes when we see people who are doing it, it's kind of like, okay, everything goes well and everything is perfect. And then
Yeah.
like we don't hear that much about this journey when sometimes there is a struggle, but then it's kind of like keep believing, have people around you who support you and encourage you on your path.
And even if you don't have those people, as long as you know in yourself, this is what you're supposed to be doing, it
Yes.
might take a little bit longer, but you'll get back on track.
Yes.
Um,
And
most of the artists that I know, when I teach my workshops, I'm very careful to tell people what you see is what's called the glamour shot. We come out, we sparkle, we do our thing. It looks easy because we make it look easy.
yes.
But when I teach my workshops, I say, y'all are going to learn what it takes to get to that glamour shot point. And I've had, I don't know how many people come to me after workshop and say, oh my God, I didn't know I was going to be so tired, or I didn't know this was so hard, or I didn't know. People don't get it
So can
until
you
they actually have to go through it.
Yes. So can you share a little bit more about these workshops that are coming up? Because I just love how that is part of your mission, help people to tell their story and share their voice. And I love when you shared, like, okay, the gift comes with the responsibility. So it's also doing the work. So who are these workshops? Who are coming to your workshops, and what are you doing in these workshops?
The workshops vary depending on, sometimes they're mixed, very rarely. If I'm designing a workshop, it's for women specifically. And I've done mixed groups, and that's fine. But you and I both know women will say things to and with other women that they will never say anywhere else. And so the workshops are always writing and performance, because poetry or storytelling on the page, that's lovely. But for me, that's only half the idea.
Yes.
Those words need to be out in the wind somewhere. So the workshops are, you create a piece, and I have a million different prompts. We go through different exercises. You create the piece, and then you learn how to deliver it. And that means that you're up on your feet and you're singing, because singing is the best way to train your speaking voice, and you're dancing because that helps you breathe. All of my classes have to do the electric slide, because it's a breathing exercise more than anything else, but it helps. I need for my potential performers to get used to the idea that you're not just going to be standing on stage, you'll be moving, and you have to know how to control that space. So we sing, we do the electric slide. We also, in my longer workshops, in my bigger workshops, the long running ones, I always carve out a place for us to just talk about whatever, about the things that women talk about. And sometimes it's politics, and sometimes it's having kids versus not having kids, and sometimes it's the last workshop, my youngest participant was 17, and she came in one day, and for the discussion period, she said, "When do you guys think is old enough to lose your virginity?" That was a big discussion. So, but that wasn't anything that she would have said in a mixed group.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in this group, because she was the youngest at 17, our oldest participant was 62, I think. And so in that room, she had aunts, mothers, sisters, grandmothers, all these women with all these different life experiences that
Yeah.
could talk to her. So I try to create very much a safe atmosphere where you can talk about anything, and an encouraging atmosphere where you can say whatever it is you want to say.
I
So
love
there's
that.
that little component in there. So once you get, so you create it, learn how to perform it, and then there's the show. Okay. You're up on your feet and you're doing your thing to an audience.
Oh wow, that's wonderful to have that opportunity. I need to plug my computer since it decided to die.
Oh no.
Learning to, I thought I have enough battery, but this is something what we need to do sometimes to recharge our batteries.
Always. So the newest workshop is different for me, because this one will be online. Because
Mm,
before I was limited to wherever I was. The only thing technology is good for, as far as I'm concerned, is connecting people.
yes.
Okay. So I decided I had tried this workshop, which is called Fire Scribe. And I had tried this once before, and it didn't fly the first time. So then I tried it as an online, but I had specific time that it had to happen, etc. And that didn't work. So then I tried it as just an on-site in a brick and mortar building. I ran into the same problem. People couldn't make it at a specific time. Folks really wanted to do it, but they were too far away, didn't want to travel, da da da. And so I'm sitting here one night and I'm like, I have to do this workshop. There's something in me saying this workshop has to happen. This Fire Scribe has to happen. And so then it occurred to me, do it online, but take the time restraint off. So now when folks register for this workshop, they send to me the time that's available for them. We work one-on-one sometime during the week, and then Saturday and Sunday there's a group meeting. So say that you live in, well, for instance, what time is it where you are right now?
I'm actually in Spain, so it's 5:30 p.m.
5:30 p.m. Okay. So you say, Stacy, I want to do my session at 5:30 p.m. my time, which is a little bit after 8 o'clock
Mm.
my time. So I say, okay, because my time is my own and I can, get up and run around whenever I feel like it. So we do the session on your schedule, not mine.
Yeah.
And then Saturday and Sunday, there's a group session. So all the folks that I'm working with can get together via technology, and we can share pieces and, do some analysis, a little bit of analysis and critique. And we can also talk.
Mm-hmm.
There's still, because that let's hang out component is still really important to me. I want people to get away from the idea that they have to be on their party manners all the time.
Mm.
I had one poet, an apprentice that I was working with, and she was writing me the same very guarded, very, sort of formulaic stuff. It wasn't bad, but I knew she could go deeper. One of the things that I've been gifted with is that I know exactly how good somebody can be. I know what their potential is. And so I always tell my students, I'm not training you to your potential. I'm training it to what I know your potential is.
Yes.
And sometimes my apprentices and my students hate my guts. They get over it. So this woman is writing this stuff, and it's the same stuff, week after week. And finally I said, when are you going to stop playing around and really write something?
Mm.
This isn't, she was still on her party manner. She was still doing what she thought poetry was supposed to sound like. And I said, look, this is garbage. Write you. I want to hear from you. And so she said, well, I don't know. Really, I'm not really sure who that person should be. I said, look, here's my personal theory. At any given time, any woman has at least 19 different people inside. Okay. So I said, let's talk about those 19 different people. So we kind of narrowed it on down. And in her last life, she had been big corporate executive. And so she said, but I don't talk about her. She doesn't exist anymore. And I said, she must. Otherwise, you wouldn't think about her. She wouldn't still be a part of you. So
Mm.
write about her. The piece that she ended up with was the highlight of the first show that Page the Stage did. It was but people just went, it was beautiful. It really, really was. And so a lot of what I do is tell folks, if you're not willing to dig, don't come in. If you're not willing to tell your truth, don't come in. This is not the place for you. You will not be happy.
Mm.
I don't want to hear what you think I should hear. And I don't want to hear what other people have been telling you about who you are. I want to hear who you know you are. And if that takes a little digging, a little pushing, then we dig and we push. If all it takes is somebody to say, a lot of the time, and I say this in all humility, in all modesty, believe me, a lot of the time they just need me or somebody like me to say, that's not who you are. Tell me your real story. And they go, they explode.
Yes. And I also see that you hold the vision, you see the capacity that they do have.
Absolutely.
That is open, helping them to open up and feel safe to speak from their heart, like speak the truth, come forward.
They have to. And too many women world over either can't or don't or won't because nobody ever told them they could. or
Yes.
because they're afraid, or because, unfortunately, in certain parts of the world, they tell their truth and they get found out, they're going to die.
Yeah.
Um, and so I always tell my poets, we have to speak for the women who can't, for the sisters who cannot sing. We have to sing for them. We did a project in this last workshop in Page to Stage where we had found out about a group of, I believe they were Afghani women who were writing, and they would have their husbands, boyfriends, uncles, whoever, go to the internet cafes because they weren't allowed, to and get their work. These men would go to these cafes and write these women's words and send them to the West.
Yes.
And so we started creating poems for these women. It's not always just about telling your story. I don't spend a lot of my poetry telling my story. That's going to come out in bits and pieces and has for years. I'm still on my journey. I'll stop telling my story probably 5 years after I'm dead. Okay. But I tell other women's stories,
Yes.
women who didn't get to sing. And so I have poems about women who are discovering themselves or need to discover themselves or went through a particular patch in time where the light was not shining. Women in love. I write a lot about women in love because that's where we live.
Mm.
And there are people who think that's a weakness. That's our biggest strength.
It is.
We live right in the middle of a heartbeat, and we're smart enough to know it. Some people, see that as a weakness is tragic, first of all. And an error, secondly. Vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness.
Yes.
And just by dint of that, we're the strongest people on the planet. We have to be. And so to be able to tell those stories for other women, a lot of my work, especially this next spate of poems that's coming up, a lot of that is about other women and what they're going through.
Mm.
And I use the word women inclusively. The next poem is about a little 8-year-old girl that's sitting in a jail cell. She's one of the children that's been taken away from her parents at the border. We've
Mm.
been having that, about that problem, about that travesty, I should say. And so this poem is about a little 8-year-old girl in a jail cell, and she's looking at a spider, and she's thinking, if I were a spider, I could be hiding in my father's pocket where he keeps the money to pay off the coyotes, and we wouldn't be separated. If I were a spider, I could still be next to his heartbeat, but I'm not a spider. I'm just a little girl. And, so that sort of thing.
Wow. I just
Because
love that you are giving voice to these women who are out there, whether they are young, whether they are old, and you are doing through your workshops, you are supporting others to express. And I will put all your details to the comments. So if anybody is interested to find out more. And I love also, like, now you're going global. So before it needed to be in-person workshop, but now it's time, wherever you are, if you have an internet connection, this is an opportunity for you. If you're inspired by Stacy's work, contact her and just get the support, because like you heard, she had her struggles as well. She has her journey going through dealing with rejection, dealing with this and that issue, but she has her fire burning, and she definitely can support you to ignite your fire and keep that burning. So I just love, Stacy, that you were here today and shared about your journey, your word. And when I'm just listening to that, I just hear your big heart. Like
Oh,
it's just like calling, like you heard the voice saying, "This is what you should be, this is the thing for you to do." And like now, like helping others as well to speak their purpose. So I just love the work you do, and I'm so glad that we connected through social media. Like that's
oh, absolutely.
that's how we connect, and like that's how
That's
we,
how you connect.
yeah, coming
That's how we
together.
breathe.
Yeah, because we are here to help, to support and encourage you on your path of
Definitely.
purpose. So thank you, thank you, thank you, Stacy.
You're
It's
so welcome.
absolute pleasure to have you here. And if you were inspired what we shared, please do contact Stacy. You have the contact details below. And also subscribe to this channel so you will hear more inspiring stories on the path of purpose. So thank you for watching. Bye for now.